Hello, everyone. I'm Jill Bloom, publisher of Walls and Ceilings, roofing contractor and building enclosure. I'm here today with Rick D'Amato, our editorial director, along with Trent Cotney, the CEO of Cotney Construction Law. And Trent has truly become the legal voice of the roofing industry, especially since he has offices all over the country. And no matter what state you may reside, Trent has an army of attorneys with the ability to solve just about any issue you have. So Trent, it's so great to see you. We appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you guys. It's always a pleasure seeing you guys.
And I just wanted to start off by talking about your post I saw this morning from the AIHA, which is the American Industrial Hygiene Association. And it looks like they put out some guidelines that seem to be, of course, very important in this day and age. But what should contractors know from your post?
So anytime I see anything that's really critical for the industry, I try to get it out there and put it out there via social media. And this is something, keep in mind, the AIHA is not a federal organization. Okay, so they're not the CDC, they're not OSHA. But what I liked about the guidelines that they put out that dealt with COVID-19 safety and health on construction jobs and construction sites was that it was very easy to understand. And if you look at it, there's like 7 great steps you can follow. One of the things I like to do when I'm doing these videos, I always do, okay, there's 3 things I got to tell you. I want to, and what that does is it really helps you focus. You know, we're bombarded with so much information today that the thing I liked about it is that it puts it in plain terms and it gives you some action items. The other thing that was really interesting about it is it has some great job site protection plan ideas. So take a look at it. I think the document's maybe 30 pages or so, but it's pretty easy to kind of flip through and take what you need out of it.
Yeah, it looked really cool. But you know, last week though, Trent, we talked about Hurricane Laura and how roofers were prepping. Did you have any calls from clients that were in the pathway, and what were they concerned about?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we had a string. We're always prepared here. If a hurricane comes, we know we need to be on deck. And it doesn't matter if it hits on a weekend or if it hits during a weekday, we got to be ready. And the kind of calls that we got immediately were, I got a lot of phone calls. Do you know how to get a hold of this person? And I was like, yeah, I know this guy. Let me get him, that kind of stuff. But from a legal standpoint, a lot of the calls I got was, hey, I need some kind of temporary tarp contract or something like that where I can put a blue roof on real quick. How do I deal with COVID-19 protocols in these areas as a result of this? Is this something I need to worry about? What is going to be the timetable for insurance reimbursement? And that's a question I've been getting a lot lately. And, the issue that I think a lot of people that do insurance work, for the listeners that are out there, is you want to make sure that you're talking closely to anybody that's in that industry, whether it's public adjusters, whether it's your insurance contacts that because one concern that I have is that payment on some of these claims is going to be slowed up even more than what we've seen in the past. And I think a lot of that is sort of a twofold combination. One is almost across the board, every industry has been affected by productivity loss because of COVID-19. And the second thing is that a lot of insurers know that in the back of their mind, they don't have to worry about the march to the courthouse because justice is very, very slow now. It's hard to get things done. What used to take 30 days now takes 6 months or more. And a lot of insurers are using that to their advantage. So the advice that I gave a lot of our customers and the advice I would give to listeners is make sure that you keep your ear to the ground because if your business depends entirely on insurance-based work, there may be some slow up in how that payment flows to the insured and then ultimately flows to you.
Trent, that goes along with one of the very first things that you said to our listeners when we first started doing these videos in the COVID-19 era. Is cash is king. You really need to keep an eye on these things. Mm-hmm. Is that, other than these what is clearly an issue with the insurance companies and the timing, banks, insurers, gosh, government offices, everybody is slowed down because of the production issues. What else? What other advice do you have for contractors as it relates to pay? And
Yeah, absolutely. And I think now more than ever, don't be disillusioned by the fact that we've got some storm work, okay? Because that's only going to last for so long. What I would suggest is know your customers, okay? My dad always said it's the customers you don't take that make you a successful company. I didn't know what he meant until I started my own business. Now I know exactly what he means. The other side of that is front load your contracts. If a lot of residential contractors have this mindset where they don't want to ask to get paid, they want to, it's pay upon completion. That's a horrible, way to do business. Don't be afraid to ask up front for a hefty deposit to at least cover your material cost. Don't be afraid to ask for that. And I think we kind of live in a world now where demand is still decent in the residential market. Seen some slow up, but don't be scared to lose a job or two because of having to put more favorable terms out there. And then I guess the last thing I would say is make sure communication is key. Okay, those contractors that have been able to successfully utilize technology to help communicate and stay in front of the customer is the most important thing. Okay, and managing customer expectations. If roofing contractors managed customer expectations 100%, I'd be out of a job. I'll just put it that way, because there's a lot of things that can be done to quell an angry customer before it gets to the point where you need a dispute. So I would encourage everybody out there, work with your systems internally, engage in email drip campaigns, use Zoom calls to help close sales and communicate on a regular basis, assuring your customers that, your job's going to be complete. Don't worry, you have any questions, this is how you get a hold of me. That goes a long way in this age of uncertainty.
So you would say at the end of the day, there's really not much better remedy than communication up front.
Absolutely. Ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure every day, my friend.
Speaking of the level of business, Dodge Data Report recently came out and showed commercial and multifamily starts down 22% in the first 6 months of this year compared to last year. Maybe that's not a surprise, but what do you think this means for contractors as they look forward?
I think, we're data driven here, and I'm constantly going through data. We're looking at data, trying to figure out what the next trends are. I believe that data is the equivalent of a crystal ball. I think you can look at it and figure out what the future is. And coming off the summer, what we saw was, commercial had to dip maybe 10% up to 12%. Residential remained somewhat steady, although we saw some weaker markets up in the Northeast and Pacific Northwest. But what we noticed the most was a huge fall in new con, and which would include some of the apartment and housing stuff that's going on, along with mixed use facilities that would include, your supermarket, your retail, and your apartment or condo setup. And this was the most key indicator that we saw that caused us concern, and that was a significant drop in backlog. A lot of the roofing contractors, depending on where you are, you had several months worth of backlog. That has dried up, and a lot of contractors I've talked to, for example, I had conversations last week with some contractors up in Illinois. They were telling me, look, it's basically we get them and we do them and that's it. It's hand to mouth. There is no backlog anymore. They're still busy. They're still keeping crews together, but there's a little bit more uncertainty there. I think as we continue to stretch out through the end of 2020 and into 2021, you're going to start seeing additional pressure on residential in some of the markets that haven't been really affected to date.
And when you say residential, is that the majority of the market, the retrofit market, or new construction?
Yeah, I think new construction's already been decimated. I think if the project wasn't already underway for commercial, I don't see a lot of private new con happening. Okay, there are some booming markets, like Florida's still very strong. Texas is still pretty decent. There are pockets where it's still good, but those large, subdivision improvements, that type of stuff that drove a lot of the new con residential roofing contractors, that stuff's starting to dry up. The Lennars, D.R. Hortons of the world, Pulte's, all, those types of subdivision improvers, I think, are starting to play a little bit more safe. It's ironic, Rick, I was talking to one of my employees a little bit earlier today. He's a lot younger than I am, and he's looking to get a house for the first time, settle down with a family. And he was commenting on how high prices were. And I said, yeah, but he was going to go get a house because, you know, there's, you know, as soon as he puts an offer down, somebody puts a cash offer and beats him out on it. And I told him, I said, look, you know, I remember this. I remember this in 2006 when I bought my house, and I wish I hadn't, you know. So I think the message there is that we've got a little bit of a real estate bubble. I do think that we're going to start to see some easing off of that. And like I said, I anticipate probably end of you know, fourth quarter, beginning of first quarter is when you really start seeing some telltale signs.
Interesting. What are some of the other reasons contractors are calling your law offices this past week?
You know, we've had a lot of issues related to HR stuff. It's interesting, the DOL put out some recent guidance on Family First Coronavirus Response Act paid time off. You know, one of the categories under there is if you have to take care of a child because the school is closed or the daycare is closed. Well, a lot of jurisdictions now, school boards have said, you know, you've got multiple options. You've got, you know, virtual, you've got the hybrid option where it's partly virtual, partly in person, or all in person. You know, how does that work? And the guidance that came out by the DL basically said that if it is your choice to keep the child home because of concerns of COVID-19, then you are not entitled to this elevated, you know, FFCRA paid time off or paid leave. Okay. What was interesting is they said if you are in a hybrid model where, let's say, 3 days a week you go to school, 2 days you get off, those 2 days that you get off, that still applies. So what we're saying is it's always been a moving target, and you're starting to see that. Along those lines, we're starting to get a lot of the banks that are opening up the Paycheck Protection Program forgiveness applications, and we're starting to get more questions about that, how to navigate it, how to, you know, put your best foot forward. Our tax and corporate group have been very busy trying to figure out the best way to calculate that. And depending on when you got the loan proceeds, you may have the option of looking at an 8-week period or a 24-week period. So it's kind of choose your remedy, you know, which is going to be best for you. So those have been big issues. And then always, you know, project suspensions, navigating the delays, that continues to be an ongoing problem.
Of course, you're the General Counsel for the National Roofing Contractors Association. And this past week, or just the other day, they issued a call to action to their members to get in touch with their senators to urge passage of improved and enhanced additions to the Perkins Act. Could you comment on that for us?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, Dwayne Musser, Terry Dorn, everybody with NRCA's lobbying team does a fantastic job. You know, I lean on them all the time, ask them questions, what's going on, what's the next thing coming down, and they are in the know. And that is a critical asset for this industry because it gives you that information firsthand. You know, workforce training, CTE, anything that involves, you know, bringing up skills from the high school level on, I think is critical. And I think what more and more people are starting to see is, especially during COVID, is that the value of a college education versus the value of a trade skill, that disparity, I think from a perception standpoint, is starting to disappear even more. And I think more and more people are starting to realize that it is a viable option. So I think getting out of the forefront of that, encouraging people economically and to incentivize people to, you know, pursue vocational training, I definitely think we need to get behind that as an industry and stay behind it.
I certainly understand that and agree with you. That's been a hot topic in the industry for quite a while, just workforce development. And NRCA is engaged continue to engage with the career and technical education community. I understand it. You understand it. Do you think our congressmen and senators understand the opportunity that we have before us right now? Is it resonating in DC?
Well, I would love to say yes, but I think, you know, it's the same kind of thing that we deal here. You know, we're in election year, and it doesn't matter where you are. That tends to be a primary focus for anybody that's running right now. And there are a lot of distractions out there. There's COVID-19. There's all these other different things that are playing on the attention of politicians that they have to navigate. So I think the thing is when you are lobbying, you always want to pick your battle, and you want to figure out what the best way is to get from point A to point B. Oftentimes what we found lobbying here in Florida is, instead of saying, here's everything I want, it's, let's do this year, this next year, so on and so forth. And you're able to obtain what you're looking for without the political strife that you would have if you went all at once. So there's that going on. And I think the other part of it is choosing your advocates. Okay. You need advocates. A lot of people don't realize you got to have people in favor on both sides. It's very easy to say this is a red issue, this is a blue issue. What I've seen over and over again is it really helps to have, to be able to reach across the aisle and be able to have that communication to get a lot of this stuff pushed forward. And having allies both on the representative level and on the senator level is absolutely critical. So Dwayne, Terry, everybody at NRCA Lobbying, they've got their the work cut out for them. I know we've been doing the same thing here in Florida, and it's a full-time job.
Well, it certainly is, and to your credit, Florida's always done a great job there in Tallahassee, lobbying the state government on behalf of the industry, always, as long as I can remember. So what else is on your mind? Tell us where the silver lining is. That'd be great.
So I had some really interesting conversations today, and a lot of what I love doing, and we were just talking about this before we got on here, is I love calling people in the industry, people, my friends and family, and I love talking to them, and I want to hear what they're experiencing, because if I understand their stories, if I understand what they are experiencing, I can do a better job, right? I have to understand. I don't just learn stuff in a book. I've got to be able to understand what the real issues are so I can address them. So I was talking to this one roofing contractor, and we were talking about the same thing, the silver lining, the opportunity. And, this contractor had kind of looked into a variety of things for sustainable construction, including kinetic construction. And I'll be honest, I had to Google some of this. I'd like to think I'm up to speed on a lot of it, but the idea is that there's a big opportunity. Instead of having, giant, windmills and fans that generate wind energy, there is the possibility to have very small tactile type objects placed on roof systems that can help generate wind related energy. And it's a very interesting subject. I think the Europeans have pioneered it a little bit more than we have at this point. But I was very interested in that. The other interesting conversation that I had was about the Internet of Things, IoT. And for those of you that don't know what that is being able to use, equipment, tracking devices to be able to actively track materials and equipment on a job site. So these could be, sensors or radio tags or anything like that that help indicate exactly where things are on a job site. And the conversation went like this. They were lamenting the fact that their production was down, their efficiency was down, and they were looking into a variety of things to try to speed that up, okay? And although there's an initial outlay cost, what was incredibly interesting was the amount of information that these sensors can provide. So if you think about it, there's a lot of material waste on a project, right? And we, as an industry, do a horrible job at actually quantifying what that waste is. We don't know what's being thrown in the dumpster and what ends up in somebody's backyard for use on another project, right? Well, with this kind of technology, you have the capability of really defining and honing in on what's used for a project and what's not. Now, clearly, it's a little bit of an investment, so it makes more sense on larger jobs, commercial jobs, that kind of thing. But I could see where this technology gets so refined and so cost effective that you're going to see everything tagged and everything tracked, which really gives you an idea of whether or not you've been shorted a shipment. You have this right stuff on the job, when things need to go. It's just going to create a lot of efficiency. So looking out there in the future, again, I've always said the silver lining to COVID-19 is we all have a lot of time in front of a keyboard, and there's a lot of people thinking about unique ways to solve problems right now.
That's fascinating as always. I think I wrote down more than 3 things today. Always appreciate you being with us, Trent. Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
same here.
Thanks to all of you who are listening. Jill?
Yes, thank you very much, Trent. We always appreciate how gracious you are with your time. And for everybody who's watching, if you have any questions for us, please reach out to us at either wconline.com or roofingcontractor.com. And while you're there, make sure you sign up for our free emails, our e-newsletters, and our digital editions, so you can always stay up to date when everything is being posted, whether they're new interviews with Trent or any new content that we may have on our sites. But everyone, please stay safe and healthy, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.